Okay, so thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I'm going to be talking from the perspective of a researcher working, like many people in this room, on this policy-relevant topic and how opportunities have arisen through that work to interact with policymakers, and hopefully through that tell a bit of the story, a bit of the kind of context to what the UK policy around carbon dioxide removal is. So the project that has put me particularly in front of government or in contact with government has been the SeaCURE Project. So this was a DESNZ, Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, the UK's kind of climate and energy department, funded project actually to pilot direct ocean carbon capture, but we've now got a permit for ocean alkalinity enhancement work as well. That answered all the questions, or tried to answer or progress some of the questions you can see really through kind of the piloting and the surrounding work there. Now, as that work went on, there were lots of opportunities to interact with government. So the permitting process kind of puts you directly in contact with government departments, arm's length bodies of governments. We held a bunch of workshops that we're very grateful for some people in this room to attend, where again, we were interacting with a wider set of government as well as a wider set of stakeholders. And with any project, activities spin out or get kind of prompted by it. So we had opportunities to interact with the UK government's development of a greenhouse gas removal business model that I'll come back to in a minute. Opportunities to feed into the national energy system operators' kind of plans around decarbonisation. And with the support of Carbon to Sea, we conducted or have been conducting some social licence work, and opportunities there arose to interact back with MPs, ministers in government there. And then inevitably, once you've had a few of these contacts, more opportunities arise. So we've had the opportunity to, or we're asked to produce a report on marine carbon dioxide removal impacts and the UK's kind of governance capacity to permit such things. From that, opportunities to feed into the UK's consideration of the London Convention, London Protocol discussions and how it's going to input into that, as well as a whole range of other really valuable opportunities. So stepping back then, why has the UK, I think, taken a fairly progressive view on carbon dioxide removal and the role that the ocean might play in with it? I think it starts with, similar to what was discussed for Canada and Europe, and you'll probably be able to spot the difference here, a commitment to reach net zero by 2050. And the way the UK has done this is to set a series of carbon budgets, legally binding carbon budgets that it needs to meet, which has acted really well to increase that downward trajectory of the UK's greenhouse gas emissions. The real challenge comes, as we all know, once you've done the easy stuff, the electrification, it's not that easy, but the easier stuff, some of these budgets from 2030 onwards start to include engineered removal of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And the UK's got something called the Independent Climate Change Committee, which develops the framework, develops how these should be achieved, the scenarios for achieving this, and holds government to account for them. So, from 2030, we've got these pretty substantial engineered carbon dioxide removal commitments within this, 20 megatons a year by in the 2040s, 36 in the 2050s. So significant reductions. And they really become real now. So the UK will be signing the 2038 to 2042 budget into law in the next couple of months. So I think a big part of why they funded projects like our project, the SeaCURE Project, was to really engage heavily and actively with the community and try and cut through some of the noise that there is in this space to understand what's really achievable. If they're going to sign this into law, they want to know they can really deliver on some of these commitments. So what have they then done to try and move this forward? The project that we were involved in, the SeaCURE Project, was part of the Greenhouse Gas Removal Innovation Programme. Funded 14 other projects to build pilots and a wider set of projects, including planetary, to do some sort of earlier stage work as well. They've launched a really, I think, progressive business model for carbon dioxide removal. And this is essentially de-risking investment in actually at-scale carbon dioxide removal. So you can think of it as a long-term subsidy scheme, which I'm happy to explain a bit more about if anyone's interested. There's been a lot of work to try and integrate the carbon dioxide removals into CCUS clusters, so basically into that carbon dioxide transport and storage network. And then work to integrate these activities, and there's currently public discourse around this, a public kind of consultation for how it can be integrated into the UK's emission trading scheme. But a really important point here is a lot of this stuff at the moment is focused on direct air capture and bioenergy with carbon capture and storage, and I'll come back to that. Finally, as these things get incorporated into these compliance markets, it's taken the kind of very sensible role of saying, right, we need to be very careful about how we do this. We want to be confident in the verification. So they've been commissioning MRV methodologies through the British Standards Institute. So why has the government been taking this, I think, fairly progressive view on things? And I'm going to try and answer that question, or my perspective on that question as someone who's outside of government, thinking about marine carbon dioxide removal. So, I've been impressed by many of the people I've interacted with in government. I think there's very capable, thoughtful people who understand how hard net zero is and want to keep as many options on the table as possible. For the approaches they've been developing, the support networks that they've been developing, gold standard removal, really verified removal is critical. So I think importantly, and hopefully through work that we and others in the UK have done in the science community, they've seen the opportunity for that really gold standard of removal from the marine sector. There's a good understanding of the potential for the UK for marine carbon dioxide removal, large coastline, plenty of other positive aspects. And then I think because of that kind of engagement with the science community and engagement across government, we've been able to kind of highlight the potential for marine carbon dioxide removal as a UK science community. So finally, where are we now? Where do I think we need to get to, and what do we need to do to achieve that? I think we've got a really strong policy and permitting environment for enabling smallish scale trials, which is great. We've got this fantastically progressive, I think, de-risking strategy for at-scale carbon dioxide removal. So this greenhouse gas removal business model and wider activity. But at the moment, as I said, it's really restricted to direct air capture and bioenergy with carbon capture and storage. I think that's very sensible. We've got lots of questions to answer, but as I'll sort of say in a minute, I think we need to move things onto the same footing as those before we can really move forward in the UK support network. Marine carbon dioxide removal is very much still in that portfolio of potential solutions, so it's not been ruled out in any way. It needs to prove itself. And then I think the UK's will adopt and will kind of work very closely with international governance, so making sure that governance moves in a useful, workable way will make sure that the UK kind of moves forward in parallel with that and keeps these options on the table. So what do I think? I think we need OAE and potentially other marine carbon dioxide removal solutions to be on that same footing as DACs and BECS, and we need that clear, workable international governance framework. How do I think we do that? I think the really key thing, the most important thing, is demonstrating that permanence of removal from the ocean, a real kind of scaled operation rather than kind of theoretically in a very dilute sense. And that is really, I think, the thing that's holding it back at this stage. We need to prove the environmental safety at really large-scale operations. The UK government is not going to support and pay for carbon dioxide removal in something where they see potential risk, when it's done at the sort of scales, 50,000 ton plus scales they're interested in, even if that's just kind of very near-term ecological risk, near field. I think there's, in terms of that kind of supporting the UK's role in that kind of international governance, I think there's an opportunity to really rapidly generate field trial data in collaboration and in really close collaboration with the permitting organisations, the government bodies who interact with the London Convention, London Protocol, and get as much information into those discussions in these later stages as possible so the decisions are made with as much information as we can. And I think I'm really keen to work with these organisations, again, to understand what the potential routes out of any restrictions coming through the London Convention, London Protocol are. How, is there a workable route out of it, and what data do we require to do it, to make sure we've got frameworks that we can work with and really sort of answer the questions required to move forward with. So thank you very much.